Welcome to Barbarian Banter.
We should probably should have been like, oh, how are we gonna start this? How are we gonna start this session off?
When do
Kind
we
of
do
like
that?
what even is planning? Like
I don't know.
we're professional podcasters. We don't need to
Yeah.
plan. We got this. How are you? I feel like I haven't seen you in about 5 minutes.
Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
Fantastic. It's Wednesday. Wednesday today. So happy Back to the Future Day for you. Back
Thank
to the
you. It's
past.
Tuesday for me.
I can see a great day heading up your way tomorrow. Tomorrow's Wednesday. Happy hump
Sweet.
day.
Hmm. I love it when it gets here.
Mm, Honestly, what a day. It's also, hey, it's not a nice day today, which is really annoying because it's been really warm lately. So I've got to have the heater and stuff going.
It's
But
warm lately or cold?
it's been warm lately, the last couple of days, but it's starting to chill out because we've just obviously hit autumn. So
Hmm.
it's starting to chill out a little bit. So now my heater is going to be running all the time, which means my power bill is going to be really, really high. But hey,
Hmm.
what
And do you
can
still hear my fan? Or only when I'm
um
talking?
I can kind of hear it. It's fine. I think you sound
Okay.
fine. Just sounds like a gentle breeze.
Hmm.
as, as if we're touching grass.
Yeah, really? I don't go outside. What is that?
So, last episode, that's what I'm sure that's what they're called, right? Episodes. Um, we spoke about the stats, and we didn't quite finish it. We managed to do the strength stuff,
Mhm.
where we went through like what 0 through to 30 would mean. I have a strength set of like 10, possibly 12 if I'm lucky, and which means we are up to
Dex?
Dex next. So
Yeah.
I don't know crap about Dex, except that
Okay.
the higher the Dex, the more armor you get. The more armor you get, the harder you are to hit. That's about where it ends.
Well, con and dex together are armor. But before we get off strength, strength is good for barbarians, blood hunters, fighters, and paladins. So those are
Okay.
things that you. So dex is good for your blood hunters, fighters, monks, rangers, and rogues,
Mm-hmm.
right? So basically, dex is so if you have a dex that is, let's say, really not the best. So like if your dex is one, you're paralyzed basically. You're significantly paralyzed. You're not mobile. You can't move on your own. Um, 2 to 3, I actually was reading this just before. Incapable of moving without noticeable effort or pain, which is interesting. Um, so if you have really low dex, like trying to, oh, that makes sense because my back, yes.
Mm.
So my back has reduced my dex pretty far, really low. So moving without pain is impossible.
Mm.
Makes sense. 4 to 5 is basically visible paralysis or physical difficulty. So most people will do like a 6 to a 10 to start. So 6 to 7 is a significant klutz and very slow to react. So you know those shows where you'll see the perfect example, Karen from Mean Girls, where she's like, throw the ball to me," and it hits her chest. Yeah,
She clucks like
yeah.
a little seal.
Yeah. So she's a klutz, right? That makes sense. 8 to 9, somewhat slow, occasionally trips over their own feet. Occasionally. So it's like you're fine and then you'll trip your over like nothing and be like, what just happened? It was your feet. You tripped over your feet. 10 to 11 is capable of usually catching small tossed objects. So you can play
So not
catch.
Karen.
Not Karen. 12 to 13, able to hit large targets.
Like a baseball or a basketball.
Or if you're playing with water balloons and you see your
Yeah.
dad go by and you throw them at your dad, and because your dad's quite a bit larger than we are
Mm.
when we're kids, right? Bigger target, cool beans. You're able to hit them. Um, 14 to 15 can catch or dodge a medium sized surprise projectile. So, really good at dodgeball,
Got to
right?
support that. I've been dodging balls since I was like 12.
Uh-huh. But not the typical dodgeballs in gym class. Oh
No,
wait, no, that kind of
I actually am quite good at dodgeball. It's pleasantly surprising.
yeah.
Um, and dodgeball and dodge archery.
Okay.
It's like an archery game. You gotta try and not get
Oh,
hit. I'm fairly good at it. The last time I
yeah.
played, I didn't get out once.
Interesting. Yeah, so when I used to play with the big red balls that you
Yep.
did you ever see them where when you hear them it's like ding off the ground like those things that friggin' hurt. I could play dodgeball with those. I can like our school decided that those would hurt too much, so then they were like dodgeball with basketballs and then those were hurting too much. And then we're like, okay, so then tennis balls. And I'm like, you're just progressively getting
You're just getting
more
worse.
painful.
Yeah. You're just getting worse.
And then they gave us foam balls, which when you throw them, they don't actually go generally in the direction.
I think we used to use the yellow foam balls, and you throw them. You can throw it really hard, and it's like throwing a paper airplane. And I'm like, oh no,
Yeah.
there's a giant ball coming my way.
Yeah. You
Okay.
just walk out of the way. Yeah.
Is yours
Um
13 to 14?
15, 14 to 15.
Okay.
16 to 17, able to often hit small targets. So, like, I would assume probably a tennis ball against like um, a fence post. You would
Hmm.
be able to hit a tennis ball off a fence post without issue. Um, 18 to 19, light on feet, able to often hit small moving targets. So while they are running fast, being able to throw. Like, I would say a lot of baseball players are
Yeah.
that because they're running and throwing and able to aim at their buddies.
Really, so really good eye hand body coordination.
Yes, very
Or
good.
a skilled dance, a good dancer.
Oh, yeah, incredibly. 20 to 21 is graceful, able to flow from one action into another easily. A ballet dancer.
Ballet dancer.
Yeah. How did I know you were going to say that? 22 to 23 is very graceful, capable of dodging a number of thrown objects. So
Okay.
super, super graceful. 24 to 25 moves like water, reacting to all situations with almost no effort.
So Madara from Naruto.
Yep,
If you watch Naruto chat.
accurate, accurate for sure. Um, yeah, so that would be your dex.
Okay.
So that would definitely, yeah, that
So a baby, which is pretty Gumby, would have a dex of like 4. Oh no, yeah, yeah, young.
I would say they would start at one,
Yeah,
and then they would get to two because that is them trying to like lift their heads and try and roll
yeah.
over and yeah. Um, when they start to crawl, I would say they would be about a 4 to a 6,
Okay.
right? So physical
So
difficulty, somewhat klutzy, very toddler.
very cute. Babies are very, very cute though. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so which brings us to con, which is, as I describe it, your ability to eat rotten tomatoes,
Yes.
or
Um,
how much you can drink.
yeah, absolutely. So a con of one, minimal immune system, body reacts violently to anything foreign. Holy, I have a con of one. I have an autoimmune disorder, and I swear my body, if anything, messes up. Like if I have surgery, I'm the one who's going to get the. There's a 0.6% chance that this might happen. It happens to me.
It's you. It's going to be you. You literally went to the hospital because you ate kimchi and took medication, and it turned it into fermentation.
Listen, I don't want to talk about it. Okay, you need to stop picking on me.
But I
Yes.
mean, it's a stomach disorder where that actually happens,
Hmm.
right? Where your body turns sugar or carbohydrates into a brewery.
Yeah, accurate.
Okay.
I don't know why you sound really quiet today. I don't know. I
I have no idea.
listen. I get it.
Listen here, Buster. So that's a kind of that's a one.
That's a one, yeah.
Okay, so what's two to three then?
Frail suffers frequently from broken bones. So that it's not me. I don't frequently suffer from broken bones, but I would say someone with osteoporosis would be frail, a
Hmm.
senior. And like when you get over like 75 and you start like doing the hunched over and you're frail, that because it makes sense because keep in mind that if the way stats go, all the negative parts of stats just progress all the way up. So, for instance, with Constitution, one would also be frail that breaks bones easily, right?
Yeah.
They would also all the way up until like I would say the zero, um, a zero modifier. You get all the negatives from all those.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just like
Okay.
if you're going the other way, you would gain all the benefits
The
from the
cumulative
ones under
bonuses.
you. Yeah. So it's
Okay.
cumulative negatives, right? Um, 4 to 5 would be bruises very easily, knocked out by a light punch,
Okay.
right? Like a toddler. Sorry. I was out of pocket.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
uh,
Very out of pocket.
okay, we don't actually condone anybody hitting children. Just an FYI. I just have a really dark sense of humor. Um, 6 to 7, usually prone to disease or infection, right?
Yeah.
Which would make sense if you're also frail and suffer from frequent broken bones, usually like unusually prone to disease and infection. That all makes sense, right?
Hmm.
An 8 to 9, easily winded, incapable of a full day's hard labor.
Me. No. I just don't
No,
like doing a full day's hard labor.
fair. I don't get easily winded though, so it's like so. Whereas 10 to 11, it occasionally contracts mild sicknesses. I don't get mild sickness. Someone coughs on me or sneezes on me, and if there's any type of like bacteria or virus in that at all, I get pneumonia. Like it goes from, oh, you had a chest cold, I have double lung pneumonia.
Yeah.
Thanks, my dude. So it's,
Great work. Thanks. Thanks for that. Cover up your cough.
yeah.
Don't. Um, you
Like you
should.
don't have to wear a mask, but like cough into your arm or something, right? Like make it so that there's not a spray of stuff coming out at people who are around you,
Yeah.
right?
Okay. Like, achoo.
Um, yeah, right? Or you're coughing into here, right? And that's also a place where you're not shaking someone's hand. So imagine if someone went, achoo, right? Rub their hands on their pants and then shook your hand.
Gross. It's gross. That
Yeah,
is.
absolutely gross. So they actually teach you when you start working in a hospital setting, if you're going to sneeze or cough, do it in your elbow
Yeah. I thought that
because
was.
you'll be touching keyboard.
I actually thought that was kind of normal because when I sneeze or cough, I tend to go like that,
Mhm.
like a really awkward dab.
It's the sickness dab. Yeah.
It's the classic dab, bro.
It's literally what it is. But
Perfect
yeah,
storm.
no, it's not. Over here, it's not.
Wait,
No.
it's not normal.
Mm-mm. No. The amount of times that I would be in like a supermarket, and granted, it's kids, but parents aren't correcting the kids, so I assume it's a learned behavior.
Hmm.
You see the kid go, and they're not putting their hand over their mouth. They're just
Coughing out loud.
coughing into the netherverse, and it's disgusting.
Okay,
Disgusting.
so that
Also,
was
speaking of, that was 10 to 11.
10 to 11. So 12 to 13.
Can take a few hits before being knocked unconscious.
Okay, so like an amateur boxer.
No, they should take a few more than just a few hits. Um, I would say probably like a teenager, a teenage
Okay.
boy, right? Because they generally will get punched a few times and not go down.
Hmm.
Because they just that's thick skulls. Any parents who have teenage boys will understand. Um,
Oh yeah.
yeah, yeah, they're gonna. But to be fair, teenage boys, it's like, oh, you and I have an argument, punch, punch, it's done, high five, you're good, right? Girls will be like, how do I plot to destroy everything that you think is precious to you?
The intelligence side.
Yeah, it is the mind warping, just mental warfare that
Yeah.
girls do, and they never let go of their anchor
Anything.
towards something. Yeah, if you were horrible once, you're horrible for the rest of your life. Um, 14 to 15, able to labor for 12 hours a day most days,
Okay. So
and
like
it's
a factory
labor,
worker
so like construction
or a
worker. Yeah,
construction worker. Yeah.
yeah. 16 to 17 easily shrugs off most illnesses. So it's those people who are like, I never get sick. And they only ever have like a really bad sickness, but they don't get it as bad as anybody else.
Yep. Yep. That's my
Yeah,
hobby.
there you go. Your hubby is actually 16 to 17 in Constitution. That means he's got somewhat decent hit points too. Um,
Yeah, actually. Yeah.
yeah.
Let's see that.
Uh, 18 to 19, able to stay awake for days on end. Days on end, Makados.
Yeah,
Days.
I think the
More
longest I can
than,
stay awake is 2.
yeah. I can usually push for like 2 days, but I'm a zombie at the end
Yeah.
of the second day.
The
Yeah.
longest I've pushed is 56 hours. It was just gaming. And because we're in a dark room, time doesn't exist. We didn't have to
Hmm.
go outside to do anything. We had food and stuff already. We got like pizza and stuff ordered, so someone else would just bring it in. Like, yeah. But after that though, I would go and sleep for about 4 hours, and then I'm back to it.
Oh, yeah. No, no. Like I went, when did we say goodnight last night? Uh,
Your time were like 1,
it
roughly 1
was
a.m.
1:30ish. Yeah. I didn't wake up until 11 and then I laid in bed until like 12:30 and then I went to the bathroom and had a shower and then I got out of the shower and went, I have not fed my cats. I'm going to die. And then I rushed to feed them and I swear I got the biggest lip. They were just Freya was looking up at me while she was walking going I was like, "Oh my gosh."
Our cat always reminds us too if we've forgotten to feed her. She would
Yeah.
annoy me all day, and I'm like, "What is wrong?" Well, not all day, usually for like an hour or so. And I'm like, "What is wrong with you, child?" Oh, it's because Daddy forgot to feed you. My bad.
My bud, I love you. I'm so sorry. You're starving away to nothing. So 20 to 21. Very difficult to wear down, almost never feels fatigue.
Okay, so very sturdy.
Hmm. 22 to 23, never get sick, even to the most virulent diseases. Okay.
Okay.
And then 24 to 25, tireless paragon of physical activity. Hercules,
Yeah, yeah, I see that.
right? But keep in mind, there's Hercules' constitution, not his strength, right?
Okay.
Because it would be because he basically did a dungeon crawl without having to like long rest.
And I was like, oh, I'm perfectly fine. I've just completed the 12. What are they called? The 12 trials.
Yeah,
Gucci. We're good to go.
yeah,
Nah, I'd walk there, be like, I'm tired. Give
yeah.
me long rest.
Can you feed me grapes,
I
please?
need I need my spell slot back.
Well, you are the
I am this. I would 100% be
spellcaster.
the sorcerer,
Yeah,
spellcaster.
I am the breakable barbarian.
So speaking of spellcasters, that leads
Hmm.
us into one of my absolute favorite stats in D&D. Second to one other stat, which is intelligence. And as a magic user, predominantly for the last 5+ years, intelligence is one of my favorite things. And I know that intelligence is used as a dump stat frequently in 5e.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing, the way I view intelligence is things also like your ability to learn, how much
Mm-hmm.
information you can safely store in your brain over a long
Mm-hmm.
period of time, your ability to recall information as well, right? Because wisdom, which we'll get to shortly, wisdom is
Mm-hmm.
like common sense, which I don't really have a lot of, not gonna lie.
Yeah, you
But whereas
do.
like intelligence, right? I've always said I'd have a really high int because I have quite a good memory.
Yeah.
I can recall most. I can recall most major past events. Actually, I can recall all major past events and things like conversations and stuff from weeks ago that I had, down to the syllable, because
Oh,
it just stays in my brain.
yeah,
Like
not
there's
me.
recording system.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had conversations with people as well about like
Yep.
having an int of like 6 or 8, right?
Yep.
So not really sure. Like an int of 1 would be like from I'm taking a wild stab here, right? Because I know that rats, for example, in 5e have an int of 2. An int of
Mm-hmm.
1 is like your brain just functions, right? Your body just functions itself in a cycle. Like,
Actually, yeah, it's animalistic, no longer capable of logic or reason. So, yeah, animals generally, like an animal that has its instinct, intelligence will, like, instinct will override its intelligence,
mhm. So that would
right?
be, yeah. I think there'd be 1 to 2, 3 to 4. I would pick as like um what's uh probably an incapable of like a form of communication, or you would have, yeah, I would say 3 to 4, 5 to 6 is basic communication, right?
So it starts at one and then it goes two, three, four, five,
No.
6, 7,
So
because
it's
those
three.
are where your stats. 2, 3 is barely able to function, very limited speech and knowledge. So that's why a rat works because it can function because it's animalistic,
Mm,
but it has very limited speech and knowledge, so it can't retain information for a long period of time. It does have those squeaks and stuff, and they have figured out that they do have a speech of some kind, so it would be more of a 3 than a 2, but
mhm.
it's limited, right? The 4 to 5 often resorts to charades to express their thoughts.
Like again, children I think are a good example, okay, for
Mm-hmm.
like the low stats. A 4 to 5 would be a child who would like point at a
Mm-hmm.
bottle because they know it's not the bottle itself, but they know their brain tells them in their animalistic drive that is food, or that makes me feel something. I need to be feel that bottle. That's you pointing at.
Or or a kid having a temper tantrum going,
Yeah.
right? It's like, okay, I can tell you're mad, right? I
Mhm.
get it. Like, I can see it. So, yeah, absolutely. A toddler would definitely be a 4 to 5 for intelligence. I would say a 6 to 7 is often misuses and mispronounces words. That's not fair, especially in the age of COVID, because a lot of
Mhm.
kids who went to school through COVID, they are going into the workforce having read a word but not having someone that has read that word to them, so they
Yeah.
don't know the exact pronunciation of it.
Okay. I have my perfect example of this, right, is
Mm-hmm.
I always read about Greek mythology,
Mm-hmm.
Greek, Egyptian, Aztec, all that sort of stuff, right up my alley. But obviously, because of the way when I went to school, they weren't subjects that were taught. So all the language and stuff that I learned was via reading, and how I would read
Mm-hmm.
the word as an English word. So I said to a friend, I was in my mid 20s, and I was catching with a friend, and they asked me what my favorite story was, and I said the one about Persephone, and he's like, "Who?" I said, "You know,
Oh,
Persephone in Hades,"
Persephone, yeah.
and he said, "Oh, do you mean Persephone?" And I was like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's pronounced Persephone because of the way, even the word antipodes."
Mm-hmm.
Right? People read it as antipodes because in the English language, we know the word anti and pods, you break them and put them together. If you aren't told that word, you're not going to know the difference.
Yeah.
Which
It's
is
like people who say hyperbole. It's not
hyperbole.
hyperbole. It's
Yeah,
hyperbole.
hyperbole. And I
Yeah.
don't. I agree. I don't think that that necessarily indicates that you have
A
a
low
low
intelligence.
intelligence,
No.
because you obviously have read these words somewhere, which means you have the ability to read, which is at what, an 8, 9?
Hmm.
Yeah, an 8 or 9 would be your basic ability to read. I would say, what are we doing? A 7 to 8 or
6 to 7.
6 to 7 would be like, uh, what's after the age of a toddler, but before like a 5-year-old? So like 3 to 4.
That's a toddler still.
Oh, okay, my bad. But like their understanding of
Yeah.
language and how to convey. So they would
Hmm.
point and say, "Mum, Dad." They understand
Hmm.
that. Outside of that, though, there's nothing really.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then when they say often misuses words, um, that's not necessarily fair in the age of like ADHD and autism and like, because there the amount of times where I've heard malevolent and uh,
and benevolent.
benevolent
Yep,
used wrong, and they're like, oh, they're a very malevolent force, you feel safe with them, and I'm like, you mean benevolent? And they're like, what? Like, that's benevolent.
benevolent.
Malevolent is
The evil
bad.
counterpart. Yep, yep.
So that isn't, because I knew what they meant. I would say that's not fair either. I also don't like the 8 to 9. It says has trouble following trains of thought, forgets most unimportant things. That is
A-
literally someone with ADHD, but
ADHD.
that doesn't, if you have ADHD, you aren't inherently stupid,
No, and
right?
maybe in D&D world, ADHD doesn't exist. Like, but
Yeah.
I definitely get it. Like, I definitely get the Like, I can see why they would consider it to be slow, but
Hmm.
or for lack of a better word. But as we as a society progress, we also therefore understand a little bit more about the world and how things would function and stuff.
Yeah.
Back to the understanding and use of words. One of the ones I find people do all the time is converse versus conversate. I hear is used frequently, and even sometimes I'm like, is this, I'm pretty sure this is the right word, but the way I've always described it is conversed is the action between two people, conversate is like the after part. I could be wrong, guys. Maybe I'm not actually as intelligent as I thought. Yeah, that's what I think.
So yeah,
So we converse together.
conversate is the verb.
Yeah.
Yeah, converse is the non-standard noun. So conversate is a intransitive verb. You know what? One I frigging that irritates the shiitakes out of me. Irregardless.
Hmm. What? Moist?
No. Did they add it though? Am I going to make a butt of myself? Irregardless is a word, but um, usually irregardless is used in place of regardless or irrespective.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like irregardless doesn't mean regard. Like, don't try and sound big by saying irregardless we're going to do this. No, regardless you're going to do this.
Yeah.
Right?
Like,
It's just it tends to be used incorrectly.
okay. So that was
Yeah,
our
that was 9 and under. So
9
10
and
and
under.
11 knows what they need to know to get by.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
12 to
Beverage.
13, yeah, knows a bit more than is necessary, but also is fairly logical, right?
Mm-hmm.
14 to 15, able to do math or solve logical puzzles mentally with reasonable accuracy. That's me.
Guesstimation.
Guesstimations. I'm great
Yeah.
at guesstimations. I can do math without a calculator generally. if I've had my ADHD meds. 16 to 17, fairly intelligent, able to understand new tasks quickly.
Yep.
I think you're, to be fair, I think you're like an 18 or 19, but I think this is part of, like, you tend to learn on the fly pretty quickly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would, and I've always said I've like my jump stat is strength and maybe wisdom, but I would quite happily sit at an 18. I could push for a 20, right? If it was a topic that I was very sure about and I knew, I would push up to a 20, but my standard would be an 18.
Well, 18 and 19 is very intelligent, may invent new processes or uses for knowledge. That's why I say you're an 18. You would
Oh yeah,
jump to a 19 because I love you, babe, but 20 to 21 is
I'm not then. I'm not.
highly knowledgeable, probably the smartest person many people know.
Nope, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm looking at my friend group, and all of us are quite intelligent.
Yeah.
And even in terms of like IQ and stuff, I think so. I've got my well, according to the tests that I'm sure we've all taken before, right? I have an IQ of 134, and I've got a friend who has an IQ of 142. Um,
Wasn't that Einstein?
I don't know. It was. This is why I don't believe it, because when we took these tests, we were like, these aren't real. These
Oh
cannot
no,
be real.
Einstein is between 160 to 190.
So I think average, they considered average to be 120.
Yeah.
Um, but just because you're intelligent doesn't mean you've got the wisdom behind it to go and use your intelligence.
Accurate. 22 to 23 actually gives an example. Able to make Holmesian leaps of logic. So Sherlock Holmes level intelligence, quick connections to things.
Okay.
Absolutely. 24 to 25, famous as a sage or a genius. Einstein.
Einstein. Yeah.
Stephen Hawking.
hmm I was
Uh,
about to say, what's the name of the guy in the wheelchair? Stephen Hawking.
yeah. David Suzuki. Um, oh, you wouldn't know David Suzuki, do you?
I'm
Very
assuming he's
Canadian
something to do
guy.
with Suzuki's, the
No,
brand.
he's
Ah,
no. He David Suzuki is a famous Canadian nature guy. He like throughout my entire life he was um always the person to be like protect nature because like we are if we are the smartest creatures on earth then we as the smartest creatures should be protecting nature.
was he the guy that was the first person to record 10,000 different birds?
No, I don't think
No.
so.
I just saw a thing about birds in a Canadian, so. Okay. So is it what goes after that then?
Peter Kestner is the bird guy. Peter Kistner. Sorry, I needed to know that. There's my ADHD. And then 24 to 25 is Sage and Genius. So, and with intelligence is used as an artificer, a blood hunter, or wizard. Um, so,
Wizards.
to be clear, I know blood hunters on this a lot. They require intelligence, and you can use either strength or dex.
hmm
But if it's multiple, I added them on the list. Um, So we only have two left, my dude. We have wisdom and charisma. So wisdom is your clerics, druids, your monks, and your rangers.
Wisdom is your common sense stuff. And if you know me, you know me. Common sense and I are okay. Okay. Um, but I will sometimes in game. Wisdom is perception, right? Is it perception or insight?
Perception.
Yeah. So your ability to see and understand things that are happening around you. I will struggle. So, yeah, I've definitely struggled in this department. I can feel how people are feeling, but I will miss right over my head some things. I just won't get it. Social cues, not, not hopefully
But
most of them.
to be fair, that's also part of ADHD is a lack of
100%.
like sometimes you miss social cues because you're like your
Yeah,
brain's like like three chipmunks on a wheel trying to figure out
yeah,
which direction to go.
ADHD and autism.
Mm-hmm.
Like my um yeah, yeah. So a wisdom of one would I don't know. No.
Seemingly incapable of thought, they're barely aware.
Yeah. Okay.
2 to 3, rarely notices important or prominent items, people, or occurrences.
Okay.
4 to 5, seemingly incapable of forethought. As in, if I punch this police officer in the face, I'll be fine. No, you'll go to jail, you dummy. Right? So it's like the amount of times I have literally been watching like entitled kids or
Mm.
entitled like 18-year-olds talk to police officers. I'm like, what are you doing? Like the amount of times, like I will say it was mostly the girls. It
Mm.
is mostly the girls who are like, well, what if I show you some of the, and the cop's like, no. What if I give you some money? And the cop's like, that's a bribe. Like, and then they get out of the car and they're like, okay, so that didn't work. And then what if I go to punch you or what if I, and the cop is like, well, you'd be charged with assault on an officer. Right? Like, I should send you some of them because they're like, complete lack of common sense. It's like, no, daddy's not going to be able to call the sheriff to release his little girl that just punched an officer in the face
Yeah, not happening.
on camera. Maybe if you were not on dash cam or they didn't have the cameras on them, like the body
Fine.
cam footage, but guess what? There's 6 officers standing around and you just punched one in the face. You're going to jail. Right? So there's no forethought there. Complete lack of common sense. Um, yeah, 6 to 7 often fails to exert common sense. There we go. Perfect. Common sense. There you go. Lack of common sense.
Children sticking forks into a plug.
Listen, I did that. It wasn't a fork, it was a knife, but that's fine.
Doesn't surprise me.
My
I can
dad,
actually
well,
I can
to be
imagine being like, what
fair,
happens?
my dad was an electrician. And we were raised in a different time, right?
Mm.
Completely different time. So I walked up with a knife and I was going to stick it in there. And my mom was like, no, 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 no. My dad's like, no, no, no. Let her do it. I know how many volts are going to go through there. I know it's not like deadly to her. It'll be a shock, right?
Mm.
Her hand's going to release the plastic handle before like
Before any damage is
anything
done.
bad, right? He's like, I am aware. She'll be fine. And he's like, go ahead, stick the knife in there, see what happens. Sure enough, I stick the knife in. I was like, ugh. And my whole arm went completely numb and I started crying. He's like, you're not going to do that again now, are you? Right? I never did. Right?
Okay, so we didn't learn as children with that. Okay, we didn't
Yeah.
learn, right? So you obviously got a massive shock. Have you ever held an electric fence before?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So growing up in a rural town where there's
Mm-hmm.
jack all to do except for play outside, because people, that's what we used to do was play outside before the cell phone was invented. Well, after the cell
Yeah.
phone.
And
But
the
you get
rule was you come back when
when the
the
lights come
streetlights
on.
turned on. You have to be home.
And so we'd have to entertain ourselves. And so we would do things like um, touch an electric fence, which is not that bad, to be honest. Like,
Mm-mm.
not fun, but it's not bad. But then, because we were horrible kids, we would get like our little brother and be like, come here. And one of us, understanding how electricity would work, would be like, you stand here so you don't get hurt. Like, I would grab the fence, and my sister would
Mm-hmm.
grab me, and our little brother would grab her.
Oh, fair. I would be the little kid who's like, okay.
Yeah, and that is a wisdom of
Mm-hmm.
what you've just said, the 8 or 9, right? Because
Yep.
like we would do it over and over again. We knew exactly what was coming. But common sense would be like, what? Don't? No.
No, yeah. 6 to 7,
Go out
yeah.
the window.
Yeah. 8 to 9 is forgets or opts not to consider options before taking an action.
Yep.
10 to 11 makes reasoned decisions most of the time. That's fair. I think most people are.
Average.
Yeah, most people are there. 12 to 13, able to tell when a person is upset because you're noticing the little fluctuations on the
Yeah.
face, right? You're noticing little changes in mood, right?
Hmm.
14 to 15, you and I have talked about this, can get hunches about a situation that doesn't feel right.
Yeah. Mother's instinct.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say initiative.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's not initiative. It's in like intuition.
Yeah, intuition,
Initiative. Not
empathy,
initiative. Also wisdom. Envy.
empathy,
Empathy. Yeah.
empathy. High empathy would be a wisdom. Empathy is a wisdom because you have to be able to notice something on somebody before you notice if they're feeling off.
Okay, so if we change this up to a bit more than common sense, I guess it would also be wisdom would be emotional intelligence
Yes.
because I can understand like I said, I can tell when people are upset. I could walk in the room and take a look around and
Mm-hmm.
know someone is sad, and I can generally pick up. I will tell you why. Like this person over here has probably said something because this has happened and this has happened, and this person is treating them a certain way, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're discussing now, the ability to pick up and perceive things.
Mm-hmm.
However, that being said, I can miss, like, I can make irrational decisions outside of logic. I'm not the most logical person. I'm usually more emotion based. And the more we go over this, and I just want to state to people who are listening and stuff, these are applications applied in the world of Dungeons and Dragons, not in your own personal life. So, like I
Mm-hmm.
said, I thought wisdom for me was a dump stat. I actually don't think wisdom is a dump stat. I think it's just strength, to be honest, and maybe dex.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but as we're talking about these, don't don't filter yourself into like I've got a dex of like 12 because I can catch a ball. When in reality, like real world application for these stats, it's more out of humor and stuff. Don't entirely exist, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So, like for instance, people who have um, what is it? Asperger's. It's not called that anymore. It's you're on the autism spectrum, but Asperger's tend to not notice social cues,
Hmm.
from my understanding, but they are incredibly good at feeling the empathy of the people, like feel empathy towards the people around them.
Yeah.
So they would be like, for instance, they would be like part of their personality is like a 4, but the other part is like a 17,
Yeah.
right? So it's like,
It,
keep
it,
that in mind as well.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, 16 to 17 reads people in situations fairly well. Like you can walk into a room and be like, that person doesn't like that person. That is that. This is this. Like people do that. It's
Yeah.
crazy, right? 18 to 19, often used as a source of wisdom, or decipher or decider of actions. Like someone you say, the person that you go to say, okay, this is a situation. What do you think I should do?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Right? Um, 20 to 21 reads people in situations very well, almost unconsciously. So like you don't have to like focus and be like, ooh, that's that,
You
that's
just
that.
know.
You just know.
Yeah.
Like it's the empathic people that walk into a room and be like, ooh, right?
What's going on here?
Um yeah, what can I say? 22 to 23 can tell minute differences among many situations. Like that's
Okay.
definitely not me. I can't pick out small little changes. Um, 24 to 25, nearly prescient, able to reason far beyond logic.
As in, so going through like the Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Sherlock
I,
Holmes would have high wisdom, I think.
yeah. He
Yeah,
would be over a 20. I don't know if he'd be necessarily a
yeah,
25, but it's that combined with a high intelligence because he's extremely.
but low charisma because
Oh, yeah,
he's,
100%. He would have a low charisma.
yeah,
Um, yeah, because Sherlock Holmes is actually a dick, guys. By the way,
yeah.
Robert Downey Jr., shout out to you if you ever listen to this. I really liked you playing Sherlock Holmes.
Or
But,
Benedict Cumberbatch, also fantastic at
yeah,
Sherlock Holmes.
yeah, but Yeah, Sherlock, low charisma. That's what Watson was for.
Yeah.
And people who, and like in I guess D&D application and stuff, or even IRL, no one is going to be maxed out at every stat.
Mm-mm.
So, and usually, if you're really high in say wisdom and intelligence, right, another stat is going to drop. What have you thought about?
I just thought when you said not everyone's going to be like people aren't going to be over 20 and like everything, I immediately thought of Stephen Hawking. I was like super smart, low dexterity. Dex was his dump stat.
And do you know what? That's actually a really good real world example, right? Stephen Hawking would quite easily have an int of 25 plus. Dude's a
And
killer dude.
Chariz. And
His
he's
charisma is
funny.
amazing. You're but
His
no
dex and
strength, no
strength.
dex, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm yet to meet a person who is a 20 in all things. I'm
Yeah,
yet
no.
to meet one.
Yep.
And if I do meet them, you're probably not. They're actually probably a narcissist.
Mm,
Or close to
yeah.
one. Okay,
Yeah.
so where does wisdom end? Is there a top number on the list you've got?
Yeah, right there. Hey, Blue.
Okay,
That's about it. Yeah.
so my absolute favorite stat in D&D is charisma, uniqueness, nerve, and talent. Um,
Yep.
yeah, I love charisma. I think of myself as a very charismatic person. I'm easy hitting 18. Easy. Like
Okay.
I'm pretty good at talking to people. I'm funny. I'm not unattractive. Being a streamer and stuff, you also need to be charismatic because you want people to come in and whatnot. However, shout out to Pi. I hope you have a great time at Armageddon this weekend. But in chat last night, we spoke about our jump stats. Pi said my jump stat would be Dex and Charisma. And I was like, I think it'd be fine with Charisma, like about average.
So give me a second. Let me look over this.
Okay.
I would say he's like between a 12, 13, and I would say you are 18, 19.
Yeah. So, and
I would say me,
what, 16?
I'd
You'd
be
be
similar to Pi,
yeah.
12 to 13.
Okay, so we use the tomato analogy, and it's currently up on my TikTok, but Pi proved that he has a low charisma score in chat. Because he's something about selling tomatoes, and he came up with a rap, and it was something about give me the tomatoes, I'm gonna make them bleed out your nose with ketchup or something. And it was really, really bad. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, you've proven that your charisma score, your ability to sell things via rap, isn't the greatest.
Yeah.
But also
But he
thinking,
could be charisma in another way, right?
yeah, so there's
He's
other,
just crap at making raps.
yeah, well, are you Pi? I don't actually know if you are, but there's other sides of charisma too, right? Charisma is
Mhm.
also attractive. How attractive you are, or you are viewed by other people. So, like I've spoken about having a high charisma and playing a what would be considered an ugly character in D&D, which is possible. You can be so ugly, but your wit and your ability to be like a bard, your wit and
Mhm.
ability to be funny and humorous and entertain people outweighs that. If you are ugly, you're probably not going to be a 20. Very, very hard.
Uh, I think charisma, attractiveness doesn't just have to do with looks. It's your force of personality. It is your wit. It is your able to keep someone interested. It is your it's huge. It's massive, right? So
And don't dump charisma.
no, don't. Because so let's be clear. Charisma is a bard, a paladin, a sorcerer, and a warlock.
And
Right? Those
I
are their.
hate of those.
Yes, you do.
Okay. When people are like,
So
charisma is a dump.
no, it's
Okay,
not.
it's
Talk
not.
your way out of a cell, home slice.
Okay,
Guess what? You're now in jail for 20 years. Make a new character.
yeah,
Yeah.
me out of this. He's friends with the sheriff. Nah, he's not.
No.
But so what's a one in charisma?
Barely conscious, incredibly tactless, non empathetic.
Okay.
A lot of politicians that get in power. They're incredibly tactless, non empathetic to the people. Rich people. I wouldn't say barely unconscious, but rich people tend to be incredibly tactless and non empathetic to the people around them because they have money. Screw everybody else.
And I guess that comes back to wisdom, right? Like being able to
Yeah.
understand you're in a place of privilege to
Yeah.
be and do these things. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So
You are rich off the backs of those people you are insulting.
yeah.
And if
So
they want to rise up, they will. A 2 to 3 is minimal independent thought, relies heavily on others to think instead.
we've all been in a group project where we've had one of those people.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, 4 to 5 has trouble thinking of others as people. So
Okay.
basically, it's like, oh, those poor folks, they're not even the same breed that I am.
Yep, I'd see that.
Because I go to an Ivy League school. Therefore, my Ivy League education makes me better than someone that went to community college. No, it doesn't. You're
I'm
no
noticing
better
a
a
trend.
person.
Are you
Yeah.
noticing a trend here, guys, with the low charisma? This is why you don't dump charisma.
Yeah. A 6 to 7, terribly reticent, uninteresting, or rude.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. It was the birthday party I went to.
Yeah, actually, it was. It was the birthday party you went to.
Granted, they did message me right after or like the next day and was like, thanks so much for coming. I really appreciate it. It was like, in my head, I'm thinking, even if I wasn't there, it wouldn't have mattered because you just talked the whole freaking time.
Nothing would have changed.
Like nothing. Um, 8 to 9, something of a bore or makes people mildly uncomfortable,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
A 10 to 11, capable of polite conversation.
Most people.
Most people, right? 12 to 13, mildly interesting. Knows what to say to the right people. That would be Pi and I,
Yeah, it would be.
right? Uh, 14 to 15, interesting. Knows what to say to most people.
Hmm.
Like you've seen me when I get tired and I get on
Oh
like
yeah.
voice chat with people. It's
Yeah.
like there's no filter at that point. It's like you don't know what you're talking about. Munchkin playing while fun doesn't actually mean you're playing D&D. Yeah, so that's me. Yeah. So when I'm awake, at least I can be interesting. But when I start getting tired, it's good
Drops.
luck. Good luck, people. I'm not very nice sometimes. 16 to 17, popular, receives greetings and conversations in the street.
I wouldn't say I was popular, to be honest with you.
No, but
Online,
receives
online.
greetings and conversations in the street.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So that, but I think you're more of like, yeah, 16, 17, because 18, 19 is immediately likable by many people and subject to favorable talk.
Oh, I love that. Love
Yeah, but
that.
that's not you, babe.
Not me at all. IRL, that is not me.
You're
Yeah,
a 16, 17.
easy 16, 17. At
Yeah.
times, again, I think at times you can push to the
Mhm.
18, and I think everyone can push beyond what their base set would be.
Oh, yeah.
Like, when people first met me, easy 18. Super friendly, super nice, very chill, like, oh, really nice person. The second or third time when you start to get to know me, I'm not an 18.
Yeah. 20 to 21, life of the party, able to keep people entertained for hours. No, I don't even want to go to the party.
I don't want to go to
Okay.
the party. Just let the
No,
party at home on my computer.
no, no, because, no, because like, it's hard for me to leave the party because I'm like, they're going to think that because I just connected 2 minutes ago. They're like, oh, why are they leaving? I wonder if I could just lie and say my computer shut off and I have no internet connection, so I can't come back. Right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't even want to be at the party ever again. I never want to go back to a party.
Um,
22 to 23, immediately likable by almost everybody.
yeah.
And then 24 to 25, renowned for their wit, personality, and or looks. There you go. That's where that caps out. Immediately
Okay.
renowned for wit, personality, and or looks.
So an attractive person with a, I know who.
Huh?
I know who. They also play Dungeons and Dragons. Henry
Joe.
Cavill.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Or
he, to be,
John Manganiello.
yeah, I was going to say Joe Mangala, that guy, because I don't think Henry Cavill plays D&D. He plays Warhammer 40K.
He plays D&D as well.
That just made him sexier. Damn it.
But
Why?
yeah, but like, but again, like I think charisma is one of those stats that I like. I get easy 17, right? But it can change depending on how, like, so people might find us unfavorable, which to be honest, I think
Mm-hmm.
people will, right? But
Yeah.
other people, which would make our charisma quite low, but other
Yeah.
people might be like, I really love Plague and Picados. They're like really, really awesome. So they're talking nice
Mm.
things about you. So and in D&D, charisma, that's not how charisma works, but IRL,
No.
I would definitely agree
No.
with your charisma score is one of the few scores that can continuously fluctuate depending on the situation as well.
Yeah.
Because you can go from that 13, 14, 15, get a few drinks and stuff, and you'll instantly the life of the party, which puts you at the 20 for a short amount of time.
Yeah. For sure. Sorry. Hi, everyone. This is Mrs. Freya. She's a big baby. Um, I
Hi,
would
Freya.
say, what do you, for those
Yeah.
that are just listening, I have a cat on my lap who is snuggling. You can relax. I I know you're stuck. She's she's a big baby. So I would say it's harder to build humans into D&D like as we are because we are dynamic
Yeah.
complex creatures, right? Um D&D basically boils people down to their attributes. Like
Yeah.
their species into attributes, right? And it can be very demoralizing when you look and you're like, okay, so basically D&D says the lowest thing, like the lowest um, number, like if you read what each
Mm.
thing does, if you are really, really witty, but you're not very, like, you're really ignorant, even though people enjoy your wit, then you are the level of ignorant. You're not the level of wit, and you can't do a 50-50 split,
Yeah.
right? Um, but yeah, I think it is possible in certain cases to be able to change
Hmm.
move your stats. But when it comes to D&D, like I've had this discussion before. No, baby, you can't just rub your face on my mic. I'll just move my mic up so she can't touch it. But it's like for intelligence, I would say intelligence is one of the ones that you can't bluff your way out of.
Hmm.
Um, a good example was we were in a Discord call, and someone said that they had a. Did he say he had a 6 or a 7?
An 8.
Oh, they had an 8. So their barbarian was intelligence of 8, um, and they got their barbarian. I forget. They were a giant, I think, or a giant kind. So they
No,
knew giant runes.
they had giant foundling.
Giant foundling, yes.
Yeah.
So they knew giant runes, right? And they had stepped on some arcane runes and then got transported. And their DM ruled because they got a nat 20, they knew what those arcane runes read,
Hmm.
and what they meant. And I was like, that makes no sense to me because
It doesn't make sense to me either.
number one, you've never seen arcane runes before, or you've never taken time to study arcane runes before. So how would you know what that says? You're literally pulling knowledge out of a place that there is nothing to pull from, right?
It's like
So,
learning a random language and knowing exactly what the language says, despite never having read it or seen it before.
and it didn't make sense to me. So I was like, that doesn't make any sense. And they were like, well, you're saying that, and someone with an 8 is a drooling mess. I said, no, that's not what I'm saying,
Hmm.
because I'm saying that you would, if you had rolled a nat 20 in my game, I would have said you would look at that and you would know that is not giant runes, but you know that these runes had something to do with you being transported. And
Yeah,
that's what I would
you
give
can
you.
connect
That's
the
it.
dots. Yeah, you can
Yeah.
connect the dots, but outside of that, and especially because of Arcana, and we actually, Plague and I had a chat about this after,
Mhm.
and a thing that's really important for DMs and players to understand is that every class specializes in their own certain roles,
Mhm.
and so when you have a character with an int of 8, um, having information that should only really be available to your arcane magic users, it takes away their usefulness in the party if someone else can do what they do.
Yeah.
Yes, obviously it comes down to a die roll. It comes down to, which is perfectly fine. There's literally D&D, but every class, like, that's not saying you can't do things, right? So everyone can pick a lock, but the rogues and stuff specialize in picking the locks. Therefore, no one else should be able to do it better than the rogues can.
Yeah. And it's
It's
like having a sorcerer. Is it a source? Intel sorcerers
wizards.
or wizards? Yeah. So having your wizard or your artificer um, know, because artificers are your like creators, right? So they would know arcane runes as well. But if you have either an artificer or a wizard in your party, and your barbarian is able to be like, oh, this is what it says. I would have different DC checks for the wizard versus the barbarian. The barbarian would have had like a DC 25, and the wizard, because they grew up in it, would be like a DC 12,
Hmm. And
right?
like,
Like,
yeah, like the the DC checks and stuff should move around and stuff, as you said, because of their history. The other thing to remember as well is like, um, with the, oh my god, it's gone. Just because you get a net 20 and a skill check or an ability check does not mean it is an automatic success. If I set a DC 30, right, and
mhm.
you roll a net 20 and your bonus is 7 and you get a 27, you're not going to get it. I mean, I probably shouldn't
Mhm.
make you roll anyway. To be fair, if you're not going to get the
Mhm.
DC check, I should just tell you. Versus, because yeah, nothing's worse than getting a 20 and doesn't work. However, net 20s don't mean a whole lot outside of combat oriented rolls.
I would say a nat 20
You'll
should
get
mean a
something.
success, but it should be based on the knowledge that you have.
Hmm.
So if the DC is a 30 and it's to, I don't want to harp on it again, but if it is to read runes
Hmm.
and you get a nat 20, I'm going to let you read some of the runes.
Hmm.
I'm going to let you know what type of arcane it is, what type of, I'm going to give you as much information as I can, because you did roll a nat 20. So I'm going to give you as much information as I can, but you're going to miss some stuff because maybe in your backstory, you didn't read about is it runes, or you didn't read about this type of different type of, like, you've never looked at necromancy runes, or you've never, like, so I'll give as much as I can without giving you 100% of the information, because it should still mean something. But
Yeah.
if you're a barbarian that got a nat 20 on a DC 30, I'm going to give you a lot less than I would give the wizard or
Yeah.
the sorcerer or the
Exactly.
wizards, right?
Yeah.
Um, it's just like, um, there's a reason why barbarians can't use magic, right? They
They don't
generally
have
don't
the
use they
capability
don't
to
use
understand.
magic.
Yeah, to understand how what magic works, or as I like to describe it, as like touching the wave and knowing where
Hmm.
to pull from.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm not saying all barbarians are stupid. There's a lot of really intelligent barbarians, but with the rise of Vox Machina on Prime, not it's a fantastic show, but everybody wants to play Grog.
yeah, because
Everybody.
Grog's adorable.
Yeah, Grog's absolutely adorable. But guess what? Yeah, you can be that type of barbarian for sure. But if you have a, because that's where Matt Mercer and I will differ. Grog wasn't an intelligence of 8. He was an intelligence of 6.
Yeah.
Grog should have been so dumb that he would attack his party if he wasn't paying attention. But at no point did Grog ever swing his axe at the party in that way, right? The fact that he was polymorphed into a giant eagle and giant eagle's intelligences are 8, so he got smarter is embarrassing, right? Like he shouldn't. There was a lot of things that Grog shouldn't have been able to do with an intelligence of 6, right? Like if I go back to this, like, and keep in mind this is also just a quick reference, often misuses and mispronounces words, has trouble following trains of thought, and forgets most unimportant things. So yeah, that makes sense with Grog, absolutely,
He
right?
obviously didn't
um
forget like his friendship with the cleric, right? Because that's
Pike,
a
yeah.
Pike that from that. It's really sad. Poor Pike, Pike and Grog. Oh, I'm gonna cry
Yeah.
again. Okay, but I got to cry over podcast. I swear to God, because it'll always be like a random D&D memory that comes up, and I'm like, I've just got
Yep.
to cry. But he, if what was so? Can you read it again? The understanding.
So it was misuses and mispronounces words often.
That's what I say. It's also the way he speaks.
Hmm.
Okay, Grog speaks typically of someone with an int of 6 because
Yeah.
the language used and how the vocal pitch and tone of his speech is short,
Hmm.
clear, but it ends there.
Yep.
Really basic
Absolutely.
sentences. Grog never really had full on conversations with anyone because he couldn't follow a single train of thought.
He did. He
With
actually
Pike, he
did
did.
when. No, no, no. He actually does in the actual Critical Role episodes. He has some deep thoughts. Like Grog shouldn't. Like he would have understood that. Scan. Sorry. Spoiler warning. Skip to the end. That Scanlan was gone. Like
Yeah.
as someone who is like that, he would realize Scanlan isn't there anymore, but he wouldn't understand why. What do you
Hmm.
mean we can't just bring him back? Like what's going like and him and Pike had a really beautiful conversation about Scanlan's death. And what it meant to them and how upset they were that he was gone. Grog wouldn't have at an intelligence of 6, he would have been like, why can't Scanlan get back up again?
Yeah.
What, like I don't understand, right? And so that's why I say that a lot of people want to play Grog, but I'm like, you have to understand, Grog was like a -2 intelligence. Like
And
he,
also be very difficult to play
mhm,
because the reality is, and when you role play, people tend to role play the characters as themselves, right?
yeah,
So if you are genuinely like a social person, or most people in general, having an int of 6 in game, we
hmm,
wouldn't you wouldn't be able to have conversations and stuff like this. That's not to say that you are dumb.
yeah,
You are
no,
just not the smartest cookie in the jar, but role playing that is extremely difficult because you're going to want to do and say things that probably are going to go outside your normal capability. That also, though, doesn't mean that you don't have the ability to solve puzzles.
yeah,
Okay. Then this has come up. We've all heard horror stories about like puzzle solving, where like someone with like an 8 clicks to what the puzzle is based on their character's information, tells the DM says you're too dumb, you couldn't have possibly known that.
Oh my gosh. I would say as well, I think actually, you know what? Matt actually was fair a lot of the times because um they made mention a couple times that Grog couldn't read.
Hmm.
Like he couldn't read giant runes at all. He had no idea. He had no idea about
Yeah.
giant runes, which made sense. It was like, yeah, he can't read,
Yeah.
right? So if you have a character that is really low intelligence and they are able to read and write cohesively, you don't have an intelligence
You
8
don't have
under
an intelligence
character,
meter under.
or 10 under. Actually, I would say 9 and under character, because a 10 you could write coherent thoughts, you could do, you could do all of that, but with the a low intelligence, you really can't, right? So it's a hard thing as a DM when you get somebody who rolls really poorly in their character
Yeah.
creation. And yeah, sorry, that is my cat. She saw the mic go down and she's like, I can rub on it.
A new
Um,
toy.
yeah, but it's like if you roll really poorly, that's really hard. Like if someone rolls something like a 6 6 8 8 10 10,
Which I've had.
re-roll,
Okay.
re-roll. Like,
Panini rolled a character. The highest stat was 16, which is great. Everything else though was under 10. It was under
mm,
9. And we tried to make it into a character, but there were so many negative. You can't wear heavy armor, right? If you've got
no.
a strength of less than 13 or 15, you can't wear heavy armor. You're also going to be extremely weak. And so, wherever you put that 16, you're going to excel in one thing.
Hmm.
But the rest, you're not going
I
to.
would,
It's not. You can't be a successful adventurer with those stats. And also,
yeah,
as I
that's a
mentioned,
townsperson.
yeah, yeah, and like I've mentioned this before on stream and on my TikToks,
Hmm.
if you get stats like that and the DM makes you keep those stats and play that character because not everyone gets to be an adventurer, change the game. Leave that table because everyone should be able to be an adventurer regardless of how good or bad their stats are. Everyone in
Hmm.
D&D should get their moment. Everyone deserves a chance to shine. But you can't do that with 5 extremely low stats. You should have
You
the
could,
ability to roll.
technically, you could if you put your highest stat into your charisma.
Yeah.
You have just talked your way into an
You just
adventuring group going, I am the strongest, I'm the quickest, I'm the right. You've sold yourself. What is a good example of that? I know we don't stan Harry Potter that much, but what was the Gildefrey?
Yeah. Godfrey.
Lockhart.
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 Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
He charismaed his way into it, and
Yeah.
he wasn't that very good. So that's a
Could be.
good example of someone who, but at the same time, you get shot once, you're down, and they're going to be like, okay, so clearly you were lying about having
Mm.
like strength, right?
And
Like
it's like, hey, it's not impossible to play. Charisma.
it's
I would
difficult.
either go definitely charisma. I think the other one I would have gone was strength because you could just hit things. Actually no, it couldn't be because you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between a party member and an enemy because they would all look
Yep,
the same. So
and your
charisma would be the
constitution would
one.
be, yeah, your constitution would be so low that you
Or
get hit once as a barbarian and you die.
intelligence. You can be extremely smart, but that's about it. I don't know. It would just. I think it would take a
Mm,
very unique and good role player to be able to play stats like that, and a
yeah.
DM who is also a very good DM and is willing to work with the humorous side of it. Because this isn't going to
Hmm.
be a serious adventurer. This is going to be a humorous character.
This is going to be the idiot in the corner going,
So you're
don't
not
hit
a
me.
bard. You're playing a jester.
Yeah,
That you
exactly.
Um, but it, yeah, so that I think actually that kind of sums up all the D&D stats
Yeah.
that we have. All five, covered 5 today, and obviously we covered 1 last week, which was
Yep.
strength. Um, it was actually a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Obviously, I don't talk much during the physical stats. Give me those mental stats, though, girlfriend, and I'm like, yeah, let's go. This is entirely my thing. And look, I know like I shout out my own Twitch and TikTok and stuff as well. You can find Playgroup under all platforms. All
With the
platforms.
exception of YouTube, which is Playgroup Official. Even though technically you can still find me as Playgroup,
Playgroup.
but that's not my, like, it is me, but it's not my, I stole my own name, remember?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And they won't let me change it.
And I go, and I'm Makatis. On all platforms, I'm the only. You literally can Google Makatis and it just pops up. That's the same with
Yeah.
Playgroup. Shout out to Pi again, who is in every episode thus far, because Pi asks really good questions in chat,
Mm-hmm.
and then yeah, and usually, honestly, it's actually the day before we record too. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, oh yeah, Pi said
Yeah.
this. So
Also, Eldritch Podblast, the very ones who inspired us to do this.
love
Amazing.
Eldritch
Love them.
Blast.
I also want to point out the person that was talking about the intelligent barbarian. I am not attacking you. We've had our conversations before, and you and I have started getting along really well. We talk really well. You are a subscriber of mine, and I think you have so much potential. And I think that with you reaching out for help to Eldritch Podblast, to myself, to other DMs, I think that shows a measure of growth, and I am very proud of you. I am so very proud of that growth because I think understanding where you might frustrate people and then taking a step back takes a huge amount of humility. And I
100%.
am so very proud of this person. That's why I'm not naming them at all. They will know because of the conversation, but I'm not naming them at all.
Shout out
But
to
I think they
Sydney
are,
here.
yeah, you know who you are. But yeah, I am not, uh, it's just an example of what we were talking
Yeah,
about. And it was a very good example.
it was.
But that doesn't mean that I don't think less of you or that I think less of you. I think you have surprised me and you have inspired me, and it's
Pleasant.
wonderful. Yeah,
There goes the
pleasantly.
cat.
Yeah,
All
there
right.
goes the cat on my thing.
Would you like to round us out for this episode, Plague?
Thank you so much for listening to Barbarian Podcast, the Barbarian Banter Podcast, where we talk all things D&D. This time we talked about your stats, your abilities, what they do, what they don't do, and we both had a bevy. I'm pretty sure I had one. Mikado's definitely had one.
Coffee.
Thank you for joining us. Have yourself a fantastic, wonderful day.
Bye, team.
Bye.